guys, yes, I'm Kristina from Leafyluster, and today I want to show you my Philodendron El Choco Red because I'm really mad at this plant. Ever since I got it, I only get those ripped leaves from it. So this happens already inside the petiola sheath. I tried spraying it. I tried putting it next to the humidifier. I tried manually removing the petiola sheath before it even squeezes out of it. But it's doing this weird yoga thingy where it just gets stuck inside and then rips itself. In over a year of growing this baby, I managed to get 1 or 2 intact leaves, which is not great. So this is why today I want to try and propagate my Philodendron El Choco Red. I hope that by propagating it, I can give it sort of a restart. Maybe it will be shocked, maybe it will be renewed, and hopefully it will start growing well again. I have never propagated any thick stemmed philodendron yet, I think. So this will be fun. It will be my first time. To prepare the plant as best as I can, I air layered it beforehand with sphagnum moss. It just ensures more success for your propagations. I heard that Philodendron El Choco Red is hard to root, so especially for that or maybe pricey plants, I like to use air layering. By air layering in advance, the plant has way more time to establish some roots already before you cut it. So by the time you will take your stem cutting or top cutting, you will have some roots to work with, and the chances of success with your propagation will increase indefinitely. So first, I obviously need to check out the roots that we got. I had the moss on for several months now, so let's just check it out. I have air layered at 2 different points of the stem. You could technically air layer at every node that is on the stem, but then you would have moss all around. So yeah, just down here, we don't really have a lot of roots happening. We are not seeing any sort of roots. Obviously, it's kind of a bummer. I did expect to see at least some sort of rootage here. And yes, I used washi tape to tape it on. In this one, I can already see some roots growing, which makes me a little bit more hopeful. I don't like to use moss for propagations in general, since it's such a mess to untangle. It's just so convenient to put around the stem. I'm so mad right now. This is no fun at all. I hate untangling moss. Half an hour later, we are working with all of those roots, which is great actually. It's much more than I expected from the outside. It didn't look like it would be this much. With all of this, we can now move on to cutting it. Okay, this is not bad at all, if I do say so myself. I've got some tools prepared already. We have some ethanol, a scalpel, and some scissors. You are supposed to clean your tools every single time before you cut a plant to stop the spread of disease and virus or fungus or whatever. Now that everything is nice and clean, the last thing we need to find are the actual nodes. On this plant, it's a little bit harder to do since the internodal spacing is quite small. Typically, when you see this kind of a line where there's maybe even aerial roots coming out of it, it's a node. You see our roots grow all from this line here as well. Then you have the axillary buds. These are little spiky things. So here's one. Down here we have one, and then down here you also can see one. So you can already tell where the new growth is going to come from. The space between 2 nodes is pretty small. It's not even as wide as my finger. And since you want to cut between 2 nodes, you have just a really small window where you can cut, and you have to be a little bit more precise. You can obviously just take bigger chunks of stem. I did the same with my Anthurium, so I would make sure that I have at least 1 good auxiliary bud on there. I'm stalling, so let's get on with it. I also want to keep the leaves intact. Okay, We've got the top cutting with some roots still attached. The cut isn't the cleanest, but it's fine. It's a little bit wonky. I think for this I will have to remove one of the leaves. This is a very small cutting. I'm not sure if it will work. We have some roots on there and the intact auxiliary bud right here. So we will see if this one will live. Really small stem cuttings. These are single node cuttings. So now for the rest I will just take bigger chunks. One auxiliary bud here and here. Same thing, we have two nodes, one auxiliary bud here and one here. I hope there will be some new growth from this growth point. Two leaves didn't make it, so those I might try to press. We've got the leftover stump, two just rootless stem cuttings with two nodes each, and a top cutting with a pretty good root system already. Two of those single node cuttings with some roots as well. The cut sides are very sticky. It's very sticky sap kind of coming out. Be aware of that. Do you know what really grinds my gears? There are people that are keeping their El Choco Red just in living room conditions and they look great. They have no issues with their leaves ripping. So obviously something must be wrong with either my care, which is very probable, and or the plant. So maybe it has just like, you know, bad genetics, which would be a shame. But I also recently talked with someone on Instagram and she suggested that it might also be the substrate that it's in. I think the roots might be root bound or slightly rotten. Today I want to try 3 different things, 4 actually. So I have some lacquer right here, some perlite and just plain water for the unrooted cuttings. And then one of the cuttings I will also just pot into my freshly made regular soil mix. Let's start with the perlite. I briefly washed it, gently place it in there, with the right side up preferably. Fill it up with more perlite. It is very light, airy, you can reuse it. As long as there's water on the bottom of the glass, it works like a self-watering medium. There's still a lot of air pockets in the substrate, which is in fact good for the roots. Auxiliary bud you probably won't be able to see is on this side. And then you can also observe the roots through the glass on the outside. Let's move to the lacquer. I actually haven't used lacquer a ton, but I want to do basically the same with the other single node cutting. Right side up. Here we have the auxiliary bud. So I'm going to place it in the jar and fill it up with lacquer. In this case, I want to make sure that all of the roots that might be pretty far up are still covered by some of the pearls, just to ensure moisture later on. I can also observe the roots in the glass, which is always very nice. We have our 2 single node cuttings in here. Water propagation. Only thing left to do is this little top cutting with its root system. This size will be pretty fitting for the amount of roots. I don't want to put it in too big of a pot to prevent root rot. I don't want to pot it in too deep and also not in too high. All of the roots should be covered, but the stems should still poke outside of the soil to also prevent like stem rot. And since the top cutting is way too heavy, I will also have to stake it up. Let's check out the mother plant. The soil is pretty dry. I did refill one time with my own soil, but still here in the middle we have like one big chunk of the original soil that is really compacted. We have some healthy root system down here. We also have a lot of this like stringy and just brown and rotten root system as well, just like dead. Yeah. I will remove all of the dead roots to give it the best possible restart it can get. Quite honestly, the roots on this stem piece are in really bad condition. Almost all of them are not healthy. We have one good root on here. Maybe I want to clean it and put it in perlite as well. I think that's the way to go. I'm going to rinse this. Well, this is what I'm left with. I removed all of the roots pretty radically. This looks pathetic, but I think it will be the right fit for this. It's really good that I finally treated this plant, because otherwise it would have probably like died off because it doesn't have any roots and the soil was shit. Done. This is my very pathetic last piece of stem cutting. You see how thick the original piece was, and then this is all like new growth after propagation. So I'm curious like where it will sprout. Probably from this auxiliary bud right here or one down there. I think it will get the Ziploc bag treatment with some really good humidity in there. It will go into my grow shelf like this. Well, these are all of my propagations. We got the water, perlite, lacquer and soil. I staked this one up a little bit because it was flopping over. Other than that, I'm pretty happy that I air layered it. Now seeing the roots of the mother plant, I'm even more happy that I finally took some action, because this plant would have died probably. I've got 3 cuttings out of it with some roots attached already, with some healthy roots attached. And then those water propagation I will observe closely. I will definitely keep you up to date with all of these cuttings. I will probably make a follow-up video in the future. In the meantime, I would love to hear your experiences with Philodendron El Choco Red. How are your growing conditions? Are your leaves unfurling properly? Did you propagate it already? What can I expect from my cuttings? I would love to hear all of that, so leave a comment down below. I very much appreciate any advice I can get from you. If you're interested in any other propagation videos, I will leave this playlist right here. I will see you next time. Until then, enjoy your plants and goodbye!